All right, hello and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP, online sales magazine and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined from across the country, welcoming back Andy Gole. How are you doing, Andy?
I am fantastic, and thanks for inviting me.
Of course. Andy always comes with loaded with great insights, and Andy's coached and trained over 200 sales teams in the last 30 years. And his first book, Innovate Now, shares dozens of over 150 best practices in his selling system, urgency-based selling. And he taught for 8 years at FDU's Rothman Institute for Entrepreneurial Studies. And what we're going to talk about today is this is a good one, right? We haven't had a topic like this before. The salesperson as a platypus. Why a platypus, Sandy?
That's not something you hear every day, is it?
It isn't. It isn't. No. So why?
So,
Tell me why you call them a platypus.
well, to give you some context,
Hmm.
I often hear from owners and executives, you can't find good salespeople.
Yeah.
And those people very often are looking for a mirror image of what they represent and how they are. And they're entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And I say that a salesperson tends to be like a platypus because a platypus is part mammal
Hmm.
and part fowl.
Yep.
And a salesperson is part entrepreneur, part employee. Now, if they were 100% entrepreneurial, which is kind of what ideally we would want, they would go out and start their own business
Right.
and we wouldn't have a sales team.
Hmm.
So that's the dilemma I'm presenting for consideration. Your listeners may have a different view of this,
Yeah.
but we want the entrepreneurial zest, the creativity,
Mhm.
but we also want someone who will take coaching and follow the program.
Yeah.
And it's in that regard that they're a platypus.
Yeah, which is why, no, and I would agree with you, Andy, which is why they fulfill a unique role because let's face it, and I'm always using the example of accounting. So I apologize to people in accounting. It's I've not meant as a diss in any way. But your colleagues in accounting and in most of the other departments in the organization have predictable income. Maybe they have bonus structures or whatever, but generally speaking, month to month exactly how much you're going to get paid. The salesperson is the only person in the organization who doesn't know that. They could be full commission or they could be a base salary, plus commission. So they don't know what they're going to be earning. So that means that they have to be, as you said, they have to be entrepreneurial and a little bit different in how they operate because of they're always operating in this kind of I would say volatile environment almost.
Yeah, if I could add to it and just stick with your analogy with the person in accounting or operations,
Mhm.
they have a more predictable world and universe, and hopefully one that's psychologically healthier. What does a salesperson face?
Yeah.
Unpredictability, uncertainty, radio silence, rejection, conflict laden work.
Hmm.
Very challenging, very challenging job. And think about the imagery now. Willie Loman,
Yep. Yep.
pathetic failure, or those slimy con men in Glengarry Glen Ross.
Yeah. Yeah.
The way
We've done a number on salespeople through popular culture and always presented them like that. So yeah, so you're correct, right? Can you imagine if you were an accountant and you came into work every day and say you were doing the stuff and all you were getting from your boss was no, no, that's not right. No, go away. I don't want no, I don't care. Or your boss suddenly is ghosting you and not even replying to this is the reality of salespeople every day, as you
it
said.
is.
You get
It
no 9 times out of 10. Nowadays people don't even feel the need to even politely say, listen, thanks Andy for, thank you for doing the presentation, thank you and all that. I'm not ready to buy right now, or I've made a different decision or whatever. They just go to, I'll just ghost them.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's a tough job, disrespect, and from my perspective, a key question is how do we support the salesperson who has this tough job? And I submit what makes salespeople heroes is they open the closed mind.
Yeah.
So if there's no resistance, if there's no incumbency, if there's no trusted advisor existing, if they're looking to buy from you, we really don't need this kind of a selling process that we're discussing.
Hmm.
So what owners and executives want are like heroes that will open the closed mind. And in traditional hero myths, the worthy hero is supported with magical gifts, like the shield of invulnerability.
Right.
The question I explore here or want to explore here is what are the magical gifts? How do we support our worthy sales heroes who are opening the closed mind?
Hmm.
That's the issue. And I think we need a very special sales culture for optimal results. One that gives the salesperson the opportunity, if they engage, if they take a do or die approach, if they're a go getter, if they get out there
Hmm.
and they do their job, an opportunity to earn respect and self respect. Respect and self
Yeah.
respect. If a if a salesperson is experiencing respect and self respect, they're going to be turned on to their job. They're going to take the hill. They're going to do what they need to do.
Hmm.
And that's the role of sales culture. Now, I see three distinct worthy causes that would get a salesperson self-respect. Three worthy causes. First, trusted advisor selling.
Hmm.
So, do I want to get up in the morning to be a slimy con man like in Glengarry Glen Ross? Not so much. Do
Hmm.
I want to get up in the morning to be a trusted advisor? Maybe. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So, this is a first question for leadership to consider if they agree with this idea of trusted advisor, being a trusted advisor is a worthy cause. And towards this end, I recommend wisdom based selling. What is the wisdom you bring? So, to give
Right.
you a quick example, I have a client that has 10 hotels, and the buyer is saying to the saleswoman, your hotel room costs 50% more a night than the incumbent. A room is a room, you're all the same.
Mhm.
Why should I pay more? So if price is the only issue, we're going to lose.
Yep.
We did some research. We found a Harvard Business Review article, Sleep Deficit is a Performance Killer. And now we reapproach the same buyer and we get into a conversation and we close it and they pay 50% more because we've shifted the conversation from what's your best price to a good night's sleep.
Right. Right.
That's an example of wisdom-based selling, and in my experience,
Yeah.
it's
I just
really
just
the job.
just for a second there, Andy, because I think this is such a great example because it's a simple yet very profound example, right? Of I could say, "Ooh, 50% more for a night." Yeah, that's a lot of money. But when you change it to, okay, good night's sleep, therefore, people productive or whatever the next day can hit the thing. How much
Yeah.
more valuable is that than the cheaper hotel room?
So that's an example which has to be customized for
Sure.
each space. It's not a reasonable expectation to expect the salesperson to come up with a wisdom-based approach But one good way to get started, to give a practical example to your listeners, every salesperson and every key executive come up with one bit of wisdom that would be valuable. And now maybe we have 15, 20 bits of
Hmm.
wisdom. And before every sales call, a salesperson should ask him or herself, what's the wisdom I'm going to bring here today? So the
Hmm.
first worthy cause is earning the right to being a trusted advisor. That's the first one.
Hmm.
The second one is the bold vision for improvement. Here we use the two peak model, the false peak the prospect's on, and here's the higher peak of well being. We could take them there. We're not
Yeah.
selling snake oil. It gives our sales team moral certainty. I know what I'm doing is good.
Right.
I'm out there fighting the good fight. It's ironic. The buyer is pushing me away, but I can persist because I know I'm bringing that buyer to a higher place of well being. That's the second worthy cause, a second worthy cause. The
Yeah,
third
and it's
worthy,
not. I'm just on that. It's nice because that's what a lot of people. Let's face it, Andy. That's what the real salespeople want to do. Is they want to articulate and help people to uncover and bold visions and get outsized results and things like that. That's what really makes a lot of them tick, right?
yeah, and to give you a very quick example, a SaaS company, a client who's a SaaS company, they do billing, collecting, and administration for martial arts studios. They have 2,000 martial arts studio clients. They want more.
Hmm.
Here's the problem. Our service costs twice as much as the cheap one. That's the problem.
Right.
So what does the buyer say? I love your product. I love your product. I love your service. Can you cut your price in half? But we can't. One day I was in the office and I noticed a stack of return mail.
Right.
So what's that? He says, well, these are people that went out of business. So we do some research. Here's what we find out. Typically, 30% of martial arts studios fail every year. 5% of our clients do.
Mm.
We contribute to reducing bankruptcy risk by 80%. That's what we do. That's a bold vision statement.
Yep.
It was an important part of why our closing ratio with the program went from 20% to 40%. The basic idea is we start with wisdom and now we can turn it into a bold vision statement. So if we're arming our salespeople with worthy causes like trusted advisor selling and bold visions, they're going to want to continue to do the behaviors that we need, the do or die behavior, taking the resistance, taking the rejection. The third
Mm.
one, which I also don't hear mentioned perhaps as much as it merits, is the peak experience nature of selling. When you close, it's a peak experience.
Hmm.
Now, if you were a con man or con woman, like in Glengarry Glen Ross, you still have the peak experience of closing, but you feel like you're a worthless rotter because
Yep.
you're cheating people. So if you start with the trusted advisor, you build the bold vision on top, and now you close, the peak experience that you have is nourishing.
Mm.
This is not, in my experience, obvious. What I'm sharing here with you and with the listeners, this is not obvious stuff. And it's not reasonable, in my experience, that the salesperson should work this out themselves. It's not reasonable.
Yeah, and one thing I would agree with you, Andy. It's not reasonable, and that is why, if you think about it, amazingly, given how important sales are and how important sales teams are, they are still probably the most unsupported uh, group in the organization, because we often just say, "Well, you're a salesperson, like go figure it out, right? Out you go." We wouldn't do that with most other employees, because we'd say, "Here, listen, what do you need? We need to give you this and blah blah. Maybe we need to train you more on that." Or the sales, we just say, "Go figure it out."
Yeah. So if I could just kind of like sum it up,
Hmm.
the right kind of sales culture delivers respect and self respect.
Yeah.
The self-respect comes from worthy causes, and that's the self-respect, and the respect comes from a powerful selling system which engages the buyer and causes them to act respectfully. And we have a buzzword we use. We call them PIKs, payments in kind.
Yeah.
If the buyer is serious because you have a strong selling process and it's a
Hmm.
fit, it really is a fit, then they'll do behaviors that are appropriate. For instance, they'll fill out a credit application, or they'll introduce you to their boss, or they'll check a reference. So when I look at a situation where salespeople are not achieving or salespeople are failing, 3 out of 4 hires are failing. If we're not hitting our sales goals, if we're not opening up enough new customers, I recommend that one place to look is at the culture. Is the culture strong enough? And what I have endeavored to do so far is lay out some ideas, and perhaps most people are doing it, but there might be an idea or two for them to explore here. And of course, this
Hmm.
is what we help people with, is building a culture, building the tools that will support them. So
Yeah.
that's
And
that's kind of like the message here that I wanted to offer.
yeah, and the interesting part you just said about the action, taking action, right? Because this is something that I think so many salespeople sometimes fall into that trap of. I'm having great conversation with Andy, right? They're ongoing. We're going to have another catch up next week, right? But you're not doing anything, right? You haven't taken any action as a buyer. I haven't asked you, can you introduce me to your boss? Can you invite maybe the IT person to the next meeting? As you said, can you fill out a credit application? But we still convince ourselves that this sale is progressing when it's not progressing at all.
Yeah, and if I could offer to our listeners today a specific procedure to get behavioral change from a
Mhm.
buyer,
Yeah.
it's a 3-step procedure. So we've been talking a lot of theory. Let me give you something very practical here that might be a fit. And yeah, maybe they're doing it. You come to the end of the meeting and you say to the prospect, "Gee, I'm curious, what were your takeaways from our meeting today?" And the prospect says something like, "Well, I was really interested in how you get quick turnaround time," whatever they say.
Mhm.
That's the first step. So the second step is a question, another question. Well, do you want to learn more about this on a fast track basis or a back burner basis? Fast track or back burner? Of course, you're
Mm.
hoping to harvest fast track.
Sure.
Now the prospect says fast track because you did a good job. You say, good. Get out your calendar. Here's what we need to do next. And so that you set up that action, whatever it is, you set up the action. So that's the fast track technique. Now, you could always do that at the end of a meeting, but if you've skipped steps, if you haven't used wisdom, if you haven't used bold vision,
Mhm.
you get to the end of the meeting, you might have nothing. So it's
Mhm.
important to have a very powerful sales process. This is a way to harvest from it
Yeah.
at the very end of the call.
Yeah, and then obviously to make sure that between now and this follow-up call that there is something that is happening. There's something happening that I'm not just it's not just another a continued meeting and another time, but you're doing something.
No,
I
no,
gotta
yeah, it might be fact finding. It might be
yeah,
bringing another person in.
yeah.
Um, Another huge PIK that I would mention is learning the closing conditions. The
Mhm.
closing conditions are the series of conditions which, when met, result in the sale.
Mhm.
So here's a procedure to learn your closing conditions and get action again. Gee, John, you said that on time delivery is really essential to you. It's a must have. What else is a must have? So you use the fact finding to identify one must have.
Right.
Then you get the whole list. Then you say, okay, great. If I satisfy you on all these, can we do business?
Mhm.
So that's earlier. That's before you do any proving.
Yeah. No, and that's good because sometimes people would go, well, if you've got one, I'm happy. I'll go home with just the one, rather than saying, no, no, if I've got one, I can get more.
And if I could just add one last
Of
practical
course.
thought for your team, sometimes people give you as their closing conditions vanilla milk toast conditions because they want to enshrine the incumbent.
Hmm.
So when you ask the question, "Gee, if I could do these things, could we do some business?" And the buyer says, "Well, no. Why would my current vendor does that?"
Yeah.
So it's very important to make sure that when you get the closing conditions set and the agreement, that it includes something that's a new must-have and that is defendable. In other words, from my perspective, it's the
Mm,
salesperson's job to establish a defendable position.
absolutely.
So
Fantastic, Andy. Well, there's so much value here in such a short time. It's great, all practical advice. So, as usual, Andy's information will be below this video. But again, remind people what you do.
I help teams achieve amazing things by coaching to better sales cultures and then the selling system. The culture is embedded in what we call the standard sales call. Sometimes we do the whole enchilada, including um, all the selling tools, the testimonials, the messaging. Sometimes we just train.
Mm,
Sometimes we do one-to-one coaching. Sometimes we come in just for an annual meeting. But the most effective program is when we do the whole enchilada.
yeah, absolutely. Well, as I said, I'd encourage you to check it out below here, and maybe Andy and his team can come help you. So again, thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.